Boys and girls, Kernel Popcorn here. Today's story is The Fishberns, a fish tale, and it's written and illustrated by Regena, Harrod, Evers. You're going to like this one. Today's word is going to be dreams. Dreams are a few things. They can be what you have when you're sleeping. You can dream about many things, but they can also be a dream about something you want to do in life when you get older, when you grow up. So dreams are a lot of things. Before we get started with the story, however, I'm going to, like always, have my piece of popcorn because it gets me going. And I love it. And my pineapple juice, like usual. Okie doke. Let's get started. Once there was a family named Fishburn, Father Horace, Mother Lily, their children Felicity, Finley, baby Frederick, and Grandma Gertrude. Horace, Lily, Felicity, Finley, Frederick, Grandma Gertrude. They lived at the end of a river that flowed into a clear brook that ran through a beautiful meadow where trees lined the banks and the sunlight made the sandy bottom glisten like gold. This brook was the Fishburns' favorite place to go on family outings. For a special treat, they would make their way down to a dock at the far end of the brook where the human children liked to throw pieces of bread into the water and watch the fish feed. Horace was the chief fish patrol officer and guarded the area to prevent the smaller, less experienced fish from swimming into more dangerous waters where they could be eaten by the very large living fish there. Lily took care of little Freddie and their home, attended meetings at the school, and visited with her neighbors. Grandma Gertrude had always been active with the Senior Swimmers Club, where most of her mature fish met for lunch. They would usually talk about when they were minnows, how the neighborhood had changed, their grandchildren, and sometimes just go for a leisurely swim. Their home was a sunken fishing boat and was indeed the envy of the neighborhood. It was a large, and Lily did have quite a way with decorating. Grandma Gertrude had her own wing on the bow. Baby Frederick nursery was near his parents' room, and Felicity and Finley had the whole back of the boat for their rooms. Goodness knows, Finley needed the space. Much to his parents' dismay, he was a pack rat. He would bring home everything from pieces of aluminum cans and rubber bands and all sorts of debris that he found on the river bottom. Lily was forever telling Finley to clean his room, and Felicity, who was a neat freak and kept her space spotless, would tease him when he got into trouble. Not so her parents could hear, of course. Finley and Felicity attended school, which Finley thought was a total waste of time. Old Mrs. Prudence Perch, who, by the way, taught both his parents, would insist on demonstrating the quick turns in swimming. She no doubt had enjoyed more than her share of fat, juicy worms in the past few years, and her quick turns were anything but quick. Still, she insisted on having all the little fish line up with a baton in fin, in a very proper voice would instruct, and turn, and turn, and turn. Over and over, they would practice. It was not unusual for Mrs. Perch to have to stop and tell Finley that he simply was not keeping up with the class. He knew this was true because he always had his mind on other things. Finley would daydream about inventing stuff, as he called it, and was always trying to figure out how to make things work better and more exciting. Felicity couldn't wait to tell her parents about how Mrs. Perch had to stop class because of Finley's lack of attention. Mr. Truman Trout taught Finley's favorite class, safety. Finley's creative mind would go to work on better ways to detect fish hooks in bait and how to disguise oneself from predators. He spent a great deal of time in his room using all of the neat things he had stored away for just such events. Horace and Lily just didn't know what to do about Finley. Right now, they actually had more important things to worry about. It seemed that Grandma had stopped going to her senior club. One day, one of Lily's friends had mentioned that she had heard that several of the mature fish were staying home. That night, the Fishberns had a family meeting. To their dismay, they discovered the disturbing news that Grandma had forgotten how to swim. She told them that it was happening to several of her friends as well. This was indeed a catastrophe. The family felt sad and utterly helpless, all except Finley, who shut himself away in his room and secretly worked on stuff for days and nights. Off he would go when he had spare time, and back he would come with some more junk, as his sisters called it. His parents paid little attention to his comings and goings because they were so worried about poor Grandma. She simply lay floundering in her room, unable to go out. One day, when no one was home but Finley, he went to Grandma's room and told her that he had a big surprise for her. The Fishburns were just coming back from a trip to the brook when all of a sudden what happened to be a torpedo flew past them. Before they could all turn in unison and duck, back came that thing, zipping over their heads, leaving nothing but a wake of bubbles that blew poor little Freddie to the other side of the river. They actually feared for their lives as they watched in horror as the meteor-like streak of bubbles flew out of sight. Then they saw Finley holding his fins high in the air, yelling, "Yes!" and joyfully swimming around and around in little circles. "Have you lost your mind?" Horace said to his son. "What was that thing? We might have been killed." "It was Grandma," said Finley. "If a fish's mouth could drop open, everyone's would have done just that." Even little Freddie, who had stopped crying by now, had eyes as big as saucers. Yes, Finley had finally put his creative mind and imagination to work, and had taken his stuff and made a tail propeller for good old Grandma. And wow, could that thing move! No doubt he was going to have to make a few minor adjustments, but it worked just fine. Just as he had finished explaining to his parents what exactly had happened, Grandma zoomed past again. "Don't worry," Finley said. "She'll run down in a minute, and we'll have to wind her up again." Sure enough, Grandma came sputtering into the midst of her still speechless family, as happy as a clam. Within the next few weeks, it was not uncommon to see the senior Zephyrs, which is what they now call themselves, zipping all over the neighborhood. In fact, Horace had to start issuing speeding tickets for going too fast in the no-wake zone. Old Mrs. Perch put in her order for one of the propellers and was an absolute nightmare when she got it. Talk about some fast turns in the classroom. The poor students just couldn't keep up with her. Finley was truly a hero to everyone in the river who had relatives could no longer swim. They had no further worries about some bigger fish eating their loved ones because now they swam too fast to be caught. Even Felicity was proud of her brother. "It just goes to show you," said Grandma Gertrude, "never give up your dreams, no matter how foolish they may seem to others." Now, wasn't that a great story? The Fishburns. Now, Finley did not give up on his dreams. And think about it. Grandma Gertrude said, no matter how foolish it may seem, stick with your dreams. Good things happen if you dream big. Today's picture is by Olivia Vaquero. Olivia is a 4-year-old girl and lives in Jacksonville, Florida. Her picture is called Stoplight. Instead of using yellow, she chose to use purple. I really like her imagination. Thank you so much, Olivia. If you would like to have a picture of your art seen on my show, have that sent by your mom or dad or friend to kernelpopcorn@mail.com. That's KERNEL popcorn@mail.com. Until next time, toodaloo.